Well, in 2021, Facebook abandoned its plans to launch Instagram for Kids, thank you, Jesus, after internal research revealed what we already knew, that social media use increases anxiety and depression in teens. What a surprise. Dr. mental health expert reflected on this by saying, yeah, there's a lot of exposure to what everyone else is doing online. And we all put our best selves on the internet. Sounds like church on a Sunday morning, doesn't it? So I think there's a lot of misconception around. I'm supposed to have this. I'm supposed to be doing this. I always lean in and I tell these young people, you're where you're supposed to be. You're where you're supposed to be. Really? How does he know? I mean, think about it. How does he know where young people are supposed to be? What if we're just encouraging them to be where they're not supposed to be? I relate to this years ago before I went to Nepal. I believed that I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. There was a time I thought I knew for sure. Like I said, I was serving in San Diego. The ministry was fruitful. People were coming to Christ. It was growing. I had every reason to stay. And I used to say to myself and to others, I know that I know that I know that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be, until God stepped in and said, I want you to go. I want you to leave this. Are you kidding me? I remember exactly where I was. We were in Mexico on mission, and the speaker was just giving this impassioned plea for people to do something about the needs of the world. And I watched my young people crying as they were singing that last worship song. And I thought, this is so great and wonderful for them. And I started to pray. I said, Lord, you need to do something about the needs in this world. And I'll never forget, that prayer bounced right back at me. You do something. Whoa, 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 Lord. The excuses started flying. I have successful ministry here. The kids need me. Everything else, silence. Nothing came. Well, you kind of know the rest of the story. I wound up serving in Nepal for about 14 years. But I initially made a 2-year commitment, and I hated it. No offense to my wife and my son and other Nepalis who might be listening. But my initial first year in Nepal was brutal. I didn't like it. I hated it. And I kept praying, Lord, get me out of here. But I had made a 2-year commitment. And again, during a worship time, when I kind of retreated into this space with just me and the Lord, the Holy Spirit descended in a way that I had recognized because it had happened before. And I realized God was going to speak. I'm trying to be all holier than thou. I almost said, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. But I just listened, Lord, what is it? One word, stay. Stay. And I started to weep, not with tears of joy. Backed against the wall and started weeping. My charismatic friends were rejoicing. The Spirit's got a hold of them. I'm like, back off. This is not the time. This is not the time. And I remember that I was praying about my future wife and all of those things. And I wasn't sure what it had to do with that, but I shared with a mentor of mine because I really believed this at the time. I leaned into this and I prayed. And I said, God, do you want me to do this thing? And he said, you know what? I'll bless you if you go back to the United States and take that job at the big church, the big job offering you just got. You can do that. I'll even bless that. You can do that if you want to. Lord, what will happen with the ministry in Nepal? Silence. Silence. I shared this with a mentor friend of mine, and he got excited, and he said, yeah, I knew God wanted you to stay. And it makes sense that God would say something like that. I said, yeah, but, silence was my answer when I said, hey, what happens to these people in Nepal? And he said, I'll give you an answer. A lot of people go to hell. Oh, man. Take the knife and stick it into me. Okay? So when God called me, there were no lights, there was no glitz, there was no glam, there was no platform, there was no applause. In fact, quite the opposite. I had some people discouraging me to do what God wanted to do. There are needs here. Look at these young people. The United States needs you. San Diego needs you. I had one person look me straight in the eye and said, don't go. Do not go. My own brother said, don't go. I think it's better if you wait until after your mom passes away. My mom backed me into a corner as only she could do. And she said, if you miss God's will because you're worried about me, I'll be very disappointed in you. So thanks, Mom. Thanks, Mom. And so because of the rhythm of Jesus' life, or the life that Jesus calls us to, oftentimes away from the spotlight, away from popularity, that's not the goal. He's calling us into mission with him. Well, what about us? Most of us live lives caught between doing too much or doing too little, nothing at all, just standing there, right? Those two extremes, we bounce back and forth in our American culture. We want to serve, but we also want to rest. We want to be present for everything, but we want a pace of life that's not overwhelming, right? One day we're burning out from doing too much, the next we're feeling guilty because we're not doing enough. And we keep asking, am I making a difference? Am I doing what's right? In short, am I where I'm supposed to be? And how do I know? Well, Jesus shows us a better way. And he shows us a rhythm for life that worked for him. It can work for us. In fact, in Mark 1:29-45, Jesus shows us a way that we can break the cycle of performance and burnout by learning to hear his voice better. How do we do that? What are these rhythms? Well, there are three different movements that I see in this passage. So let me share them with you, and then we'll walk through them. Don't just stand there, do something. That's movement number one. Movement number two is exactly the opposite. Don't just do something, stand there. And then the final movement, don't just go there, be there. Okay? So point number one, don't just stand there, do something. Jesus immediately leaves the synagogue and he enters the house of Simon and Andrew, and he sees all of these needs around him, including Peter's mother-in-law, right, who has a fever. Now he starts with what he knows, the leaders in his group. He goes to their home. And we need to seek to minister in the homes of people we know. If we can get into people's homes, we can learn a lot. I learned that as a youth minister. I remember there was one guy who came to faith, and I went to his house. I was kind of the assistant of the youth minister. I went with him, and he had all kinds of girls on his wall, posters, some of them not fully clothed, shall we say. And I realized, wow, we got a lot of discipleship to do with this kid. If you can get into someone's home, you will see the needs, and you'll see the need behind the need. Now, thank goodness, Jesus did not have this type of situation with Peter, but he did see that Peter was living in a joint family. His mother-in-law was sick. She had a fever, and he went over to her and healed her. He didn't wait. He just jumped right in. He didn't stand around and continue to assess. He didn't wait till he thought his team was ready. He just did it, and he dove right in. Now, healing a fever might seem like a small thing, but in Jewish culture at that time, in the books of Deuteronomy and Leviticus, when someone had a fever, that suggested that they had broken faith with Yahweh God. They had broken the covenant, and the fever was a curse upon them, and only God could remove that fever. So this was not a small thing. This was a huge thing. And Jesus says, step aside. And he lays his hands on Peter's mother-in-law, and the fever, it says, forsook her. Just like a demon, it left. Wow, what does that mean? It means Jesus is more than who we think he is, right? He demonstrates authority, the same authority that God has. And then people started coming like crazy, bringing the sick, the demon-possessed, and everything. So Jesus didn't wait for something to happen. He made something happen. He jumped right in. And then everything started happening. That could happen to Interlink, by the way. If we don't wait, if we jump in and get things started, then perhaps too many things will begin to happen. And we'll be overwhelmed. And that brings us to point number two. Don't just do something. Stand there. Right? When life gets overwhelming, we need to retreat. Back to the scriptures in verse 35. And rising very early in the morning while it was still dark, he departed and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. A return to the desert again, a return to the wilderness, a place that in first century Palestine, they considered that to be the enemy's territory, but Jesus had already driven out the enemy. And he said, no, this is my place now, and this is where I go to get away. Do we have a desolate place, a space for just us and God, a place to retreat to when life gets overwhelming? See, the demands of ministry were so intense for Jesus, but still he prioritized prayerful dependence above everything else. And I find it interesting, the exaggeration. It's almost like the disciples, they finally found Jesus. They didn't quite know where he was going to be. They didn't know where to find him. They didn't think, oh, maybe he's praying somewhere, right? This is the beginning of the ministry, right? But at the end of ministry, Judas knew exactly where to find Jesus. Oh, he's going to be praying at the Mount of Olives. Well, there's a lesson there for us, right? Are our rhythms of prayer so predictable that our children know where to find us when it's prayer time? Our enemies know where to find us when it's prayer time. Do we have a place where we meet God that is obvious to everyone? Well, everyone was looking for Jesus. They exaggerated. The whole world's looking for you. There are burning needs out there. Come on, Jesus, let's go. There are people to heal. There are demons to cast out. We got a good thing going here, Jesus. I can imagine Judas in the background calculating. I can monetize this. We could make some really good money here. Let's get this going. It's the beginning of faith healing. And there are people that do that, aren't there? People who capitalize on the needs of others and go from town to town to make money off of people's misery. Jesus knew it was a good thing. And I think he shocked them when he said, nope, let's go. It's time to go. See, prayer kind of, I don't know, it's like dimming the lights or lowering the volume on all the noise around us so that we can hear God more clearly. Prayer puts us back on mission. And Jesus said, this is not why I'm here. I'm not here to build a circus. I'm here to build a movement. And to do that, I need to go out to the small villages, and I need to take my team with me and train them how to do what I'm doing. No, this is not what we need to do. And I imagine the disciples thinking, are you kidding me? This cannot be God leading you. Look at the results around you. When we measure ministry success by the metrics of worldly success, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. May that never be for Interlink. May we never be more concerned about, let me phrase it this way, the butts that are in these seats than the people that are out there. Let's not do that. Gosh, what do we do if we get successful? And we get lots of people here. There are bills to pay. There are ministries and programs to create. There are needs here. What do? We retreat in prayer. And we don't just do something. We stand there with God or sit there, whatever works for you, in prayer. God, what's the next step? You know the phrase, right? The good is often the enemy of the best. And we don't want that to happen to us here. So prayer aligns us with mission when we step in. If you notice a little bit earlier in the previous point, don't just stand there, do something. I find it interesting that when Jesus heals his mother-in-law, and I know it's part of the culture, but when she's touched by Jesus, she can't help herself. She automatically gets up and starts serving. So she's not standing on the sidelines either. And so if we claim to have been touched by Jesus, we can't just stand on the sidelines. We can't just stand there. We got to do something. What do I do? What's my gifting? I don't know. It kind of reminds me of what Place was all about, right? We don't just want to stand there. We got to do something. And you got to do that to confirm Place. Just because the coaches, Preston, Bruce, or myself say, hey, the tests show you're gifted this way and your personality is like this. Good. Go for it. Jump in. Do something. And then between you and the Lord, retreat. Don't just keep doing stuff. Stand there and pray. Okay, Lord, I have experience now. Let's fine-tune this. Where do you want me to go next? And if it's clear between you and the Lord, don't apologize for it. Go do it. What do I do when I get there? Well, we have a clue. This brings us to the final point here. I don't know why. I feel like I'm going quickly. Maybe that's a good thing. Point 3, don't just go there, be there. Don't just go there, be there. And I want to take the time to read this. And I want us to think about ministries that we go to like Gilpin Court, One Day here in Ashland. There's a lot of lessons here, but there's some key lessons that I want to tease out for us. A man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Now, you've probably heard other sermons or you've read other books about lepers in Jesus' day. It's a skin disease that caused them to be ritually unclean. And so in every way they're cut off. They're cut off from the people. They're cut off from God. They're even cut off from themselves. And so they're totally separated from everyone. And this leper comes to Jesus and says, "If you're willing, you can make me clean." The scriptures say Jesus was indignant. Some versions say angry. What's he angry about? We'll circle back to that. He reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." Immediately, the leprosy left him, and he was cleansed. What's going on here? Why was Jesus angry? I don't think Jesus was angry at the man, or he wouldn't have touched him. He wouldn't have shown compassion. He was angry at the disease. He was angry at the system that marginalized this man. He was angry at people. He was angry at the cultural rules. Jesus was just angry that this needed to be a thing at all. This person, broken apart, separated from their family, cut off from their family, cut off from society, and now cut off from God. No one wants to be near them. Are you willing? Of course. Of course I'm willing. He just healed a fever, demonstrating that he has the authority to banish something that only God can do. And he's willing. And he touches the man. He didn't just go there in ministry. He was fully present in ministry. Embraced this guy. Touched the untouchable. And as a result, now Jesus is going for complete restoration. Not just physical healing, but complete restoration. Let's look at the rest of this. Jesus sent him away at once with a strong warning. "See that you don't tell this to anyone, but go and show yourself to the priest and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." See, Jesus knew that it wasn't enough to heal this guy. That would not restore him to the community. It wouldn't restore him to his parents or everyone else. He had to go through a process. The priests had to see that he was fully healed, that he was no longer unclean. And then they would have to do the rituals, the proper rituals, to make him clean. And then eventually they would ask, how did this happen? How did this happen? Let it be a testimony to them. But notice verse 45. Instead, he went out and began to talk freely, spreading the news. He circumnavigated the normal process for restoration, the recommended process by Jesus. And he said, "I'll take care of this myself." But he went out spreading the news. As a result, Jesus could no longer enter a town openly, but stayed outside in lonely places, that wilderness again. Yet the people came to him from everywhere. Interesting. This guy disobeyed. He may have changed Jesus' method, maybe slightly altered his strategy, but the mission did not change. And Jesus still accomplished the end result. What I love about this is it teaches me as a human being that if I don't get everything right, if I accidentally miss what God has for me, he's still in control. He demonstrated that with Peter's mother-in-law with the fever. I'm in control of this, nothing else. He demonstrated that as he healed everyone and he cast out demons. He touched the leper and demonstrated that he had complete authority over this supposedly incurable disease. And then he demonstrates, even in our disobedience, he's still in control. Do you know what that teaches me? Everything we've just been talking about. Don't just stand there. Do something. It's almost as if God is daring you to mess this up. I dare you to mess this up. Go ahead, jump in. But after that, retreat. Don't just do something. Stand there. Are you willing to take the time to listen to me? Let me steer this ship you're on, right? It's the old analogy. You're driving a car, you can't steer it, you kind of can, but you can't really steer it if it's not moving somewhere. Get moving and ask the Lord where to next and follow his directions to steer. But even if you mess up that, he's still in control. And the number one principle that we need to practice is that when we go there, whether it's Gilpin Court or here in Ashland, we need to be there. We need to be compassionate and touch these people. It's all too easy to look at people who are in dire straits, that are having problems, to say, well, you know what? That's what happens when you don't handle life properly. You kind of get what you deserve. And that's kind of more of the far-right conservative perspective, isn't it? Come on, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You did this to yourself. Get off government funding. Then the other extreme is, well, the government will take care of all of it. Now, the reason I'm pointing this out is I want to draw your attention to this very simple truth. Neither side gets their hands dirty. They'll go there, but they're not there. Here at Interlink, we want to be the kind of people that will go there, but we're completely there. We roll up our sleeves. We get our hands dirty in ministry. We touch these people, and we see them as people, not statistics. And we have complete compassion upon them, and we cooperate with the Lord to bring them into full restoration with God, the community, themselves, the entire creation, if God calls us to that. That's what it means to go there and be there. Not easy, but if we follow God in this way, we will learn to hear his voice better and better and better. So be present when we go to the broken places. Love people where they're at. Even if it's messy, people misunderstand us, or if it's off script, go for it. And our disobedience, their disobedience, it might change God's method, but it will never change the mission. That remains the same. This is comforting to me. It means that no matter how hard I try, or even accidentally, I can't mess this thing up. So I don't need to be afraid. So I need to just jump in and start doing something. Pull back and hear him. Fine-tune where he's sending me. And then finally, get fully involved. This is what Jesus is inviting you to. His rhythm for ministry. Is he calling you to serve someone right where they are? Not where you want them to be, but right where they are. Is he calling you to that? Is he calling you to retreat and pray before you react to where they're at? Is he calling you to be fully present with someone who feels forgotten? To be willing to reach out and touch them, to make them feel seen, heard. You might not feel like you're where you're supposed to be, but if you're walking with Jesus, you are exactly where he wants you to be. Do you hear me? Where does Jesus want you to be? On mission. For him. With him. And as you do that, his voice will become more and more clear. What does this mean for Interlink? What would it look like for Interlink to live out these rhythms right here in Ashland? I want you to imagine that we're not just standing here in our church, looking around, waiting for something to happen. No, we don't just stand here. We do something. We get out into Ashland. We minister in homes, maybe Ashland Woods or Randolph-Macon, to our own people, yes, but also our neighbors. No act of love is too small, and healing must be up close and personal. We don't just want to throw money at something. We don't want to just legislate for something. We want to roll up our sleeves and dive in and be there. And don't just do something, stand there. What is our purpose statement? Do you remember? We're a praying people, equipped by Jesus to impact this world for the next. That means we must prioritize prayer. Have that place or space in your life. I do this all the time. Alina's witnessed it. I think you have. I'll pray when I'm washing the dishes. Kill two birds with one stone. I know it's weird. It focuses me to get that done. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to pray. I pray for you guys. I pray for Interlink. I pray for Ashland. Prioritize it. And then with our neighbors, don't just do something, but listen to them as well. Listen to their needs. And don't just go there, be there. We are present with the hurting. Imagine that. The addicted, the isolated. We touch what others avoid. We enter stories others ignore. We love without needing attention. That's the rhythm of Jesus. Imagine if Interlink lived this way in the community here. What would happen? Well, the first point, don't just stand there, do something, means we don't know what's going to happen, but I imagine many people would be touched by Jesus. Jesus would become real to them. People would become to faith. People would fill up this room. People would become baptized. They would be equipped for ministry, and they would reach more. And the movement would happen. Why are we here? What has Jesus brought us to Ashland for? We need to get on our knees in prayer and ask Him. That's the rhythm of Jesus. That's the heartbeat of His church. That can be the future of Interlink, right here in Ashland. Praying people, equipped by Jesus to impact this world for the next. Let's pray.